Now, once you're happy with the mixer settings and your gain structuring and signal path, and you've ensured that the master processors are turned off, you're ready to start exporting. Now, the export process itself is pretty easy. It's the actual settings that we use that we've got to concentrate on and get right. But before we get into those, let's just look at how we actually get the export started and the process we need to go through. So currently I've got one channel soloed. And this is important because when you solo a channel, that's the one that's going to export. What you hear is what you get pretty much. And you can see there's only a couple of bongo parts in here, but I'm going to export this entire section. And the reason I'm going to go from this early point here, well before it starts, is I'm going to take every part from the same point. This is so that if you give your parts to somebody else, a mix engineer, a mastering engineer, or a remixer, when they load it into their DAW, all you'll have to do is tell them the tempo and they can load them from the same point and everything will sync up nicely. So we're going to go from a bar just before 17, and that's because I don't like going from the bar that all the parts start on, because sometimes you get a little click or it misses some data. So I always have this small buffer at the beginning. So I'm going to zoom back out. And what you can do is to minimize the file size. If your bongos are only in this much, check there's no effects tail. Yeah, they stop pretty much straight away. So we can just put the right locator here. Again, leave a small buffer. Don't stop it right where the part stops. And we're pretty much ready to export that part. As long as it starts in the right place, we're good to go. So let's hit bounce, and I'm going to use this shortcut here. And next up, you should see the export window, the bounce window. And it's saying it's going to bounce output 1 and 2 here. And that's the main output, so that's all good. And it's automatically taken us to the bounces folder. Now, this is within our Logic project folder, and many DAWs do this. Cubase does it, and it's called dynamic allocation. Well, that's at least what Apple call it. And what it does is it creates a folder ready for the bounces to be placed in, and it's within your project folder. Now, you can see there's already a couple of things in here, and these are just things that I've bounced throughout the process of this project. But don't worry too much about that. You'll just probably see a blank folder at this point. Now, the next thing to look at is the settings down here. And these, again, they're pretty similar in every DAW. You're going to have more settings or less settings. Some DAWs like Ableton will give you less settings, and Recorder will give you less settings again. Cubase, Pro Tools, Digital Performer, Logic, they all give you quite a few options. If you understand the basics, you should be fine. So let's look through these and see what we should be doing. Now, file format, we can use AF or WAV. It doesn't really make a difference. It used to be PC and Mac compatible, but nobody really cares anymore. They're both just uncompressed formats, and they both work just as well as each other. It might be a good idea to stick to one so that all your files are in the same format. I tend to use AAF, and we're going to go with 24-bit, as that's the resolution we're working at. 44.1 kilohertz, that's what I work at. If you work at a different resolution or sample rate, then that's what you should adhere to. And you should really stick to the same resolution and sample rate all the way through your project until the end. And we'll look at that when we get into mastering. And file type interleave, this means it's going to be one file as opposed to two files, one for left, one for right. We're not got any dithering on. This is a process we use when we're moving from 24-bit to 16 or lower. And it basically uses some algorithms to take away data or add data to make the file bigger or smaller without losing resolution and playback quality. We've not got these ticked because we don't want to add it to the iTunes library or our audio bin. We're going to turn normalize off. This normalize is just basically turning the file up to its maximum amplitude without processing it. We've got the audio tail off because we haven't got one, and we're going to do it offline, which means that it will do it faster than real time. And sometimes you can do more than your computer's capable of if you've got a huge mix going on. And you can see up here, destination is PCM, which just means uncompressed. We don't want any of these compressed formats. The start and end point has already been picked by our left and right locator. So we're ready to name it. So we can call it bongos, final bounce. And I tend to put a number after them. This just means that if you do it again or you have to alter it, you can put 2 or 1B and you know where you're at. So if you want, you can actually put a folder within bounces called bounces for Cubase or somebody's name or whatever you like. Keeps you organized. And we're just going to bounce that